I am so excited to introduce you guys to Barry. I met him through a mutual connection and we just hit it off. And I invited him onto the podcast because he's doing something that I think is super valuable. He's running multiple businesses, he's trying to do it ethically, and he has a beautiful idea of what it means to be running those businesses. And so in this conversation, I think that you guys are going to find exactly what I found, which is just this very lovely person who's working exceptionally hard to do business well, do it right, and I cannot wait for you to get into it. So without further ado, let's start the chat with Barry.
All right, so it's Monday. You're sitting in your chair all day, all day long. Is that just like standard par for the course? Is that kind of the
sitting here?
Yeah, I mean, just like, is it just meeting after meeting, or is it?
Yeah, I do a lot of meetings. I mean, I usually take time in the morning to chill out and get some space, and and I mean that's the very first thing that I do a couple of quick little meetings first thing in the morning to get other people started.
Sure.
And then I go and I get out of here. I actually go and
do you really? What do you? Okay, so when you say I get out of here, what do you go to do? Like,
I go walk or whatever.
Okay.
I do, walk or
in the Florida heat, you walk?
Yeah. I like the heat actually.
Do you really?
Yeah, I prefer it over cold. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. I talk to so many people that are like that, and I am the exact opposite. I'm like, because living in Texas, I was a military brat, and we lived in Texas a lot. We lived in Georgia. We lived in Virginia. Like, we lived in the South a lot. We also did California and stuff too. I came to a realization pretty early as a kid, like, there's only so many articles of clothing you can take off before it's inappropriate. But even then, you could be completely nude and it's still just, you're dripping wet. Like, it's just so hot. And I feel like the opposite is true when it's cold out. It's like, dude, you can always throw another layer on.
That's true. I mean, there's always that. Yeah, that's true. But I don't like the cold. Yeah, I much prefer the hot. I'd rather sit in a sauna than, than go ice fishing.
I do. So I do. Do you sauna regularly?
I have. I mean, there are time. I go through phases.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I did a detox program, where just basically like get toxins out of your body because I broke an arm and a leg, and so that they had to do surgery on both the arm and the leg. So there's like they put stuff in you, right?
Yeah.
And so I did a whole detox program. It was like 30 days in the sauna. It was like 5 hours a day.
5 hours a day in the sauna
with breaks to cool off.
But still, Barry, that's nuts, man. Like, it
was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing, like the results, because there's it's a combination of there's a book on it you can check out. It's called Clear Body, Clear Mind. And so the detox program is like 5 hours a day. It's like a bunch of vitamins, including a vitamins called niacin. All blend oil that you take, which tricks the body into giving up toxic fat cells and gives it something to replace the fat cell with. And so you're actually like getting these toxins out of your body so that they're gone, because they're there. They could pollute your thinking. They certainly pollute your other aspects of your health. So it was basically like a 3 week, about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks.
How did you do that in like work? Did you just not work, or?
No, I worked. I did it late in the day into the evening. So I did it late afternoon into the evening but I do stuff like that. Like I study. I go study every weekend. So it's so I just invest a lot in myself because, I mean, there's the most important asset that you have, right?
Yeah.
It's like so I study and just I work on learning and work on myself quite a bit. Yeah.
Beautiful, man. So you own how many companies?
I guess a few. Let's count them up. I own so I have a marketing company. I've been marketing for a long time, so I've got that. I've got a virtual assistant company. I've got a publishing company with my wife. She was a a coach at an Inc. 500 company. She established their coaching line. Give them a plug. Postcard Mania, amazing company. I work with them still. I help set up postcard campaigns for people, and they're great. They're awesome. She established their sales coaching area and put their coaches in place. But last year we just got to the point where business is doing great. She always wanted to be an author, so she wrote her first book, released it. So and she's doing fantastic. She sold about 5,000 books over 5,000 books last month. And
Wow,
she's only been doing it for about a year.
that's incredible.
And, yeah, she's great. But she's sharp. I mean, she does all of her own. She does her whole program. So we've got a publishing company too. So we end up helping, advising people on their books, and then I have either the virtual assistant, the remote personnel company working with people, or the marketing company working with them. Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so 4 companies is what I heard. Is that right?
We also have a vitamin company. Yeah. So, but that's my mother-in-law's company, and we basically so we basically, she runs it on a day-to-day basis, but we end up handling finances and some other things. Yeah.
Okay, so you and I have chatted before, and we talked a little bit about hey, the VA company helps with a lot of the other companies, which is a lot of my model for the 7 companies that I own is the same. And I get asked this question all the time. I'm curious what your answer is, but everybody, when I talk to them, they're like, you own 7 companies? Yeah. And they're like, how do you do that? I can't even do one. And so I'm curious, Barry, what is your answer to how do you run 5 companies and stay sane?
Yeah, I mean, it really has to do with putting people in charge of things, like doing what you do best, and then putting other people in, give them responsibilities and put them in charge of things, so that and put stable people there that are stably handling their area.
Right.
But even before that, which we use in the virtual assistant company as well, is we're hardcore into vetting people. We do personality, IQ, aptitude tests.
Okay, wait, before you go, what are the tests you do? And walk it, tell us everything. Walk us through it. What do you do?
Yeah, what we do, the tests we do is we do a few different, they're all through a company called Master Tech. Which there was not going to be much to anybody, but I've used these tests for years, for decades, and I know these tests inside out, right? So there's a personality test that basically measures the high points and low points in a person's personality, and so you can learn a lot about a person from that test. And then there's an IQ test, which basically measures their problem solving ability, which is pretty key. And then there's an aptitude test, which our aptitude test basically measures their ability to duplicate instructions and do those.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now you might have somebody who apparently has this great personality test, but they can't duplicate instructions. Well, they're probably lying on the personality test, is what was happening there. Or you might have somebody who's might be a wonderful person, but their problem solving ability is terrifying. And you don't want them working for you. Maybe, or at least you want them working at low level administrative work.
Right.
So we're hardcore into really vetting people with tests, and then we've perfected different interviews that we do to make sure that we get, so that we raise our odds on getting high quality people. Yeah. And it's actually a lot of fun. It's that's where it all starts and that's a big difference that we bring to the virtual assistant company too, is that we vet those people heavily. So you're not we reduce the problems of hiring by taking that first step, really, and figuring out really the right people for the right job is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And then managing those people, putting together a command chart so they actually get some management. At the VA company, we actually meet with the client weekly, see how the person's doing. We coach the VA and make them and invest in them, in training. you know. So those are like, I'd say those are the same elements that we use in the virtual assistant company are the elements that I've used in my business to make it so that I can do stuff, you know.
Cool.
And then it's really good to have a good lead generation line, obviously. You know,
Yeah.
you need that so that you've got so you've got that rolling. So but we use VAs for that too. So
Yeah.
train them and put them to work, and
Good to go.
yeah, and then put them to work for other people.
Okay, so this is so funny because I was talking with one of the gigs that I do is I work with marketing agency owners, right? And I got a text message from one of the guys that's in my it's like a mastermind plus program. And he's like, "Hey, dude, I need 2 VAs, but I don't want to go through any kind of agency for that." And I asked him, and I was like, "Well, hey, man, why not?" You know, and he goes, "Dude, none of them are any good. They don't do any vetting. It's always been an issue for me. So I kind of want to I got to make the intro now and be like, actually, my buddy Barry does vet everybody really well."
Yeah, I mean
That's interesting.
yeah, that's the big difference between, like, I mean, and we're still able to charge, very reasonable, and you can get a VA for most often. I mean, sometimes if you need somebody with a scarcer skill set, might be a little bit more, but generally less than $10 an hour, you can get a high quality person, that and then we're right there as sort of an outsourced HR department helping you to, make it all work.
That's still, what's interesting about that too, Barry, is a lot of VA agencies have sprung up and they've gotten boatloads of cash. I mean, oh, it's nuts. But they've sprung up because, in part at least, because COVID just kind of like made everybody go, "Oh, we can do this remotely."
Yeah.
And so
It's
now,
true.
who cares?
Yeah.
Has your business grown in that space since 2020?
Well, like we've been using VAs and remote personnel for a long time with our marketing company, which I've had my own company for over 17 years. But when 2020 hit, we decided at the beginning of 2020, right when it was, we went, we need to just take what we've got and export it, right?
Yeah.
So we actually started the company at that point, and so we took everything that what we've learned about, recruitment, personnel. We took our best VAs, made them, they run the company, I coach them and help them, and but they're the best, right, that we had, and now they're in charge because that's what you do. That's how you would do recruitment. Recruitment isn't an afterthought. It's
Right.
like, you want your best people on recruitment because they tend to recruit.
Excellent
The best
people.
people are who they're recruit people like themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, okay, so you've got all these things going on.
hmm
Do you think about the end game? Like, what do you want to, like, how do you exit this? Or are you just like, hey, I'm just living right here in the moment? What's your thought process for what are you up to, Barry, like in life, man? Because owning 5 businesses comes with lots of benefits and it also comes with lots of headaches. So I'm just curious, like, what are you thinking about for future, or are you just trying to be right here and figure it out later?
Yeah, the game is to keep growing, and as you grow and like get better at it, you're able to like take a certain piece of it and give it to somebody else, right, for them
Right.
to do. And so, you end up doing the stuff that you really love, which I tend to spend most of my time on the stuff that I really love right now, which is I like meeting
Beautiful.
people. I like talking to people like you,
Yeah.
right? So I get out there and do podcasts and such. And then I like leading the team and directing the strategies of the team and such. So I'm doing what I like. And then you keep building it, and you're able to take time for yourself, and so I'm able to do that more often. I'm able to do those programs like the little program that I told you about, the Detox program. And so, so that yeah, I'm there. What I really want, like what my goal is I work with a character education program. I worked with them for over 20 years. Um, Basically it's called The Way to Happiness. It's not a religious program. It's just a character education program that anybody can. Churches use it, HR departments use it, schools use it, they use it in prisons.
Oh,
uh
wow.
it's basically, yeah, it's like, I think they've distributed like 100 million copies of the booklet in over 100 different
Whoa.
languages. Actually, like, Colombia is like this great place for digital nomads to go, right?
Yep.
Well, we were right there working with the police of Colombia during to turn the tide, um, as far as like the crime in Colombia goes, right? Like
Wow.
heavily with and the police are like distributing this booklet and such, and it's just like it teaches people common sense. It's a common sense guide to better living, is what it is, and so. I want to spend more time on stuff like that, like getting involved with programs and other programs that give back and contribute. That's what that's what I enjoyed.
Is that so is this is
I want to keep running my businesses too, but
yeah.
I want to be able to, I'd like to have a little army of virtual assistants over here that's helping me to you know
So you're like you're taking the approach of, hey, I want to do the things that make the world a better place. And
yeah
that could be business, but that can also be some of the other things that you're into.
yeah
Where does that come from for you?
that's a good
What's up
question.
with that?
I don't really know. I mean, it's like I guess basically like when I was 20 years old, right about 20, I'd I got married out of high school and divorced before I was 20, right? So I obviously, like, I mean, there were a lot of bad solutions and problems that that I got into
Yep.
uh back in those days. Before I was 20, I'd done quite a bit, uh I ran into programs that helped me personally, and
I love
I
it.
started looking for answers, like, spiritual answers and other whatever. I started looking for, how to get better educated, because I feel like my education was, like, I really let myself down by not studying, like I could have in school. And so, that divorce and everything, there was after, picking another wrong solution after the divorce, hitting the drinking or whatever, and all that good stuff. So I basically, like, I just had a wake up call. I said, oh my gosh, this is going completely the wrong direction. I'm going completely the wrong direction. I went to a bookstore, and I walked out of this bookstore with like five different self-improvement books, right? And
Oh
like,
man.
on different areas of life too. It was like
Sure.
I wanted to fix everything. And the book on procrastination, self-esteem, the book on how to be organized, a book on uh, uh, another book on memory, and I forget what the other one was, but I think there's like five books on self-improvement books. I just became quite the self-improvement junkie, if you will. It
Yeah.
was a good thing to come, to get addicted to. So yeah, and I dug in on my own education, turned it all around. And I guess right off the bat, I then decided, I ran into some programs I thought were super effective for me and make huge changes for me personally. And I thought, you know what? I guess one of the goals I had then is, well, first off, I thought other people should know about
Yep.
these programs, right? You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
I said, I wanted other people to know about this. I wanted to
Yeah.
have, this is so exciting,
Yep.
and and I'm kind of like that. When I get excited about something, I tell everybody. So, so I just started doing that. I started telling everybody about it, and I, end up spending time working nonprofits. I worked in nonprofits basically for about 15 years full time.
Awesome.
Uh, yeah, and worked for publishing house that focused on nonprofit stuff for a couple of years as well back then. But I just decided, it was time to get the word out and help people to come up with better solutions in life. And I wanted people to be nicer to each other. I wanted people to get along better and, to not be mean to each other. It's like, I mean, obviously I'd run into a few mean people. I'm kind of like, people could be nicer to each other. So that was a goal, and yeah, it was like, and I just became somebody who looked for solutions,
Right.
to the problems I was running into in life. I mean, and dug in and solved and really I mean, I have books like crazy. You wouldn't believe the number of books I have in my house. I mean, I'm sure you might be the same way, but I have 8 shelves out there that are crammed full of books behind me, just more books over there, and it's important to me to for self-improvement, but then I want other people to have that. And then if we don't do that, if we don't engage in self-improvement, well, this place is going to be, I don't know, a hole in the ground.
Yeah. So, okay. One, I love that you're like, okay,
It was during the Cold War too, right? It's like,
Yeah.
during the Cold War, it's like when I was back it was in the 80s, right? Or
Yeah.
during or at the tail end of the Cold War,
Yep.
or right in there, right? It was the late 1980s. And I'm kind of like, literally, I figured the place was going to be a hole in the ground if people didn't start improving themselves and doing something, And so it's like, because you can't really, I mean, you got to change individuals, and if you have enough individuals that have improved themselves, then you have a better culture in general. And so, and I believe in that with my staff too, and training the virtual assistants that we work with and training my staff. So I'm like, I make them do courses, and they actually like it. That's why we work with the Philippines too, is because we've worked with a lot of different countries, and we still do. We still have some other countries that we work for, but the people in the Philippines love education.
Yeah.
They're heavily into education.
Well, and there's different, it's really interesting. I was having this conversation with a friend recently, and we're talking about the different views of education across the world.
Mhm.
And one of the things that is unique about the Philippines is they have a very Western mentality towards education versus people on the continent of Asia. Their view of education is we have to get the good grades. And if you can cheat smartly and get away with it, then that's totally appropriate. And so some of the biggest Asian countries, China and India, the students cheat, the teachers know that they cheat, and it's one of the reasons why, even though they're stealing intellectual property, China in particular, they're not able to reproduce any of the things that were created in the West, but then they're manufacturing in their backyard, is because they aren't learning. They're memorizing and cheating their way to success, and they think it's been their cultural experience that's totally appropriate. It's fine. It's a collectivist society. We all want to get on the exact same page, which is 100. And so it's very different in the Philippines and in Japan, and they don't have that mentality. They're like, no, you have to learn.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's like, it's all about, can you use what you studied? Because what good is to memorize what you I mean, memorization, I guess, plays into it, because, you want to be able to like remember certain things, but you also have to understand what it is that you're parroting.
Right.
I mean, otherwise, and actually, then the truth of the matter is, there's a great word. It's like, there's a great word out there. It's called glib. Glib means able to talk, right? Very fluent in talking and stuff, but but there's nothing. The person can't actually do anything,
right?
Yeah, so they're glib, where they're kind of like can pass the test, and then 3 weeks later they can't remember a single fact that they studied, and that's glib, right? Is it glib? So don't be glib. There should be
that should be a t-shirt.
A t-shirt.
So what's all right, so you're doing these things, you have this passion to help people.
Yeah.
When you kind of went through that season, you found books, now you read books all the time. Let's just do 3. What are 3 books that are sitting on your shelf, or maybe, do you do audiobooks at all, or is it just
Sure.
all?
Yeah, I do.
What are
Books, yeah.
3 books that you recommend listeners that are listening to this just go pick up right now, on any topic? It doesn't have to be business, it could be anything, but what are 3
Sure.
that are really near and dear to your heart?
Yeah, I mean, you could check out, you could, The 80-20 Principle, I think, is a great book
Love that
uh,
one.
by Richard Koch. It's a really good book. It's just on management of time and happiness, and and managing it. I mean, it applies to everything, right? It's a great principle in general. And my second book that I recommend would be like a marketing book, which would be the 80-20 Prince, the 80-20 Sales and Marketing by Perry Marshall, which would be a great book. And then I guess the third book, you go to thewaytohappiness.org for that character education book that I recommended.
Cool.
And they've got a film and
I
everything.
really thought you were going to say like the 80-20 rule to how to be happy or something.
Well, Richard Koch covers the 80-20 principle. He says, it's like you could apply it to happiness as well. Like, go take a look at the things that actually make you happy, and put more of your time into those things. And you could
Right.
apply that to a certain area of life too, like work. What are the things that make you happy and also make you money? Okay, great. How do we get rid of some things that you shouldn't be doing and put more of those things into your schedule? That would totally be, it's funny in the book. I'm studying that book again and again and again. It's one of those books you should read 5 times, right? At least. But basically, he's like, why not do things you're good at so you can stack the deck and win?
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, just right, join the competitions that you're good at those things. And so, so you've automatically like put yourself so that you've got a possibility of being first in the race.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, so that makes you happy when you accomplish things, when you get things done. That's happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to come back to was I love that you said you had the moment where you're like, I want to change, and you didn't get 1 book, you got 5 books because I just want to change everything. And there's this beautiful quote by the British English philosopher Francis Bacon, and he said, "Big changes are easier than small ones." And a
Yeah.
lot of times there's like this idea of, well, I'm just going to work on this one thing, and it's like, well, you could, or you could just transform your entire life. I
Yeah.
love that you did that. It seems like that's worked out beautifully for you. What were some of the things that you just like really saw an immediate change in yourself after you made that decision? Like, I'm fascinated by that. As much as you want to talk about it, I'm into it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess basically, one of the things was I dug in and found some tools on how to study.
Okay.
It talks a little bit about it in The Way to Happiness, in the chapter on being competent, right? And this is one of the books that I immediately ran into, that I just looked at, and then I've read it way more than 5 times. It's a short little book. You could read it. You could read it once a month. You'd be fine. But basically, being nicer to, I always thought I was nice to people, but I immediately took it upon myself to figure out how to be kinder more often, right? So that was a big change as well. So
What did that do? Because that is not a thing that you hear very often, that people are like, I just decided to be kinder.
yeah,
And then I was, and it's like, I believe that had a profound impact on your life, but I'm interested in what it did.
yeah, it's like, well, I mean, it doesn't pay to be mean to people. It just doesn't, there's never a winning situation. It's like, I mean, even if you had to like put somebody in a cell,
Right.
right? I mean, there's no why be mean about it. It's like, I'm sorry, you're
Right.
too dangerous to be allowed to run around with people, but hey, buddy, we're gonna put you over here. Hopefully we can rehabilitate you. But why be,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, you would say, well, that's me, right? No,
No.
it's not, because people are decent, everybody's
Yep.
decent, including the crazy people who have lost their mind for whatever reason, want to hurt others, and he doesn't really want to hurt people. The kindest thing to do is to, unfortunately, sometimes you have to protect yourself. So that's like, but those type of situations aside, it's like, generally you might even have to raise your voice to get somebody's attention sometime or another. but you have to remember to roll back to the kindness thing, and now why did you get mad? Did you raised your voice so that you get their attention, have them snap out of something or stop doing something that's damaging, but your intention would be to, like, continue the relationship, you know? So that would be your intention of raising your voice too. I mean, there's lots of instances like, and people make me mad. Why would it's really not going to profit me to lose my temper. It's not going to. It's not, I mean, I don't know that I mean, with the exception of what I just mentioned, right? Where you actually do it, you immediately get yourself back under control, and it actually had a good reason for doing it, because that
Right.
person would be shocked into, like, waking up. There's generally not, and yeah, anyway, there's lots of examples of being kind. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's big on kindness, and I love reposting the stuff that he has to say about how important it is to be kind. I mean, I wouldn't even say, I run into something that he says, and I'd be like, no, that's how I feel. Quite often, about training people, about developing personnel. It's like, I didn't learn that from Gary Vaynerchuk, but he's a great example of exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's one of my faves.
He's great.
Has been
He
for a
also
long time.
says the best time management tool in the world is a intelligent, cool person. So we try to find intelligent, cool people.
There you go.
To get to intelligent, cool people.
Yep. Yeah, there's a quote from an Indian saint. He said, his name's Ramana Maharshi, and he said, do what you will with another person, but never put them out of your heart. And it's similar to that idea of, even when you're locking someone up, there's a level of kindness and love that you can have for that person, while you also take an action that some people would see as quite damning. I've had, those moments where I've had to fire people because they couldn't perform the job. And some people go, that's mean. Firing someone is inherently mean. I'm like, no, I'm doing them a kindness by speaking to them kindly.
Right.
One. And two, if you're not a good fit, then it's not just that you're a bad fit for the organization. The organization's a bad fit for you. You're going to be miserable here. And so, yeah, you have the conversation early, you do it kindly, and then you move on, and you realize, guess what? They had a job before they got there, more than likely. And they're going to find another one. And there was a client that I had, actually I still have. She and I still work together. She and I have worked together now, I don't know, 7 years in different capacities. And she has a rule that until you get to 50 people, everyone has to play a vital role in the organization. And then once you get to 50 people, you can have what she calls, I would not call them this, but she calls them the team mascot. She's like someone that everybody on the team loves. That's like just they're going to make the culture feel good and lubricated, and everybody's going to be, but they don't produce a whole lot. And so I was like, yeah, that's exactly accurate. And that's why some of those people that have been let go from my companies, they go on to other companies and they thrive, because they're exactly what they're looking for based on their size, what they do, whatever. So I love that, Barry. I love that.
It's like, I fire, one of my objectives of firing people is like, I want to leave on good terms. It's like, with that, I've had people more often than not shake my hand as they were leaving the door, as they're walking out. Plus, keeping somebody who's around who's not competent, is doing a bad job or whatever, letting themselves down or whatever they're doing, is not being very kind to the rest of the team. So it's like, so if you can, so maybe give I tend to try to recommend various self-improvement stuff that person could do. It's like, hey, by the way, here, study this, and if feel free to reapply down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's interesting too that so we always call it graduating. Like,
Yeah,
and I don't show everybody, but I'm like, hey, so today's your graduation ceremony. You get to graduate to the next opportunity. And it helps because I think that language is so important, about how we have this huge stigma around firing. And it's like, hey, you're just graduating. You've outgrown us. That's great. You don't need us. You've got somewhere else to be. And it's kind of a fun way for them to shift I've seen people in the conversation be like, whoa, I'm graduating. Like, yeah, you're moving on to the next thing that's going to be better than this, because it always is,
sure. Yeah.
I've asked people a lot. I don't know if you've done this, but I'm like, I'll go, hey, was there a job before this that you thought was better than this? And they always tell me no. And I don't think that's just because my organizations are good. I think that that's because that's how we feel as humans. We're like, that job was fine, but it didn't, I mean, like the culture was good, but it paid me nothing. This job paid me a lot, but the culture was bad. This one was somewhere in the middle. Like, and so you always trade something off. I don't know. I think it's just humanity's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. People are fasting. I mean, that's what I spend most of my time studying, is like trying to, because it all relates back to how you interact with people, and yeah, people are a lot of fun, everybody's got their strengths and they've got something that they could do to be valuable somewhere. They just haven't,
Yeah.
and sometimes people just need a hard reboot, and sometimes a change of job is what that is for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are, to your point about sometimes it's just not the right time. I fired a family member that was working for me. And I always, have you ever, I mean, you work with family now, you work with your mother-in-law, you work with your wife, which is a little bit different, perhaps, but I've worked with my brother, I've worked with cousins, I've worked with my college roommate who I currently work with. And I tell people when they come in, I'm like, look, here's the deal. One of two things is going to happen. You're going to quit, or I'm going to fire you. And I use that language on purpose in that call. As long as we can still do Christmas and Thanksgiving and talk to each other, come work for me. But if either one of those scenarios transpires, and you really have to think about this, and you feel butthurt, do not come work for me, because our relationship is too important for us to just be exchanging a paycheck for that. And so it's interesting, man. I had a family member. He was going, like, started working for me, came out of the gates hot, and then he unexpectedly experienced a divorce, and he just wasn't the same. And so I kept him on for a little bit, and I finally said, hey, dude, like, you got to make some improvements here in the next 90 days or it's curtains. And time came and went, no improvement was made. And it was like, all right, dude, you know what we're doing? He goes, yeah, I know. I'm not mad at you. I get what's going on. But then I went and started a business with him a year ago, and it's crushing it, because it just wasn't that thing. It wasn't that time. It was a new thing and a new time. So there's always something new to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing I figured out about people, is that they change.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like you can't get a stuck idea about somebody where you've got like, that's how that guy is.
Right.
Because you don't know what he's going to he's going to change his mind. He's going to pick up a book. He's going to, have some sort of something happen that's going to give him a shift, and people, it's like, I mean, IQ changes, aptitude changes, my personality test has changed. I change.
Yeah.
I change. I can improve, and anybody can.
So you've done the detox thing. You've read lots of self-help books. Like, you've done all this work. What are some of the practices? You said you take walks every morning. What are some of the practices that you keep as you play a vital role in 5 different companies to keep your head above water, stay sane, you look relaxed and healthy? Like, just, no one's watching this. Barry looks relaxed and healthy. Like, what are the things that you do to stay centered and calm and moving forward?
Well, I mean, I take some time for myself every day. right? I mean, that's for sure. And like I go on, I take a walk and I go, I mean, I guess I don't meditate. I do that instead. I go out and I try not to think and I try to look at things and I try to get extroverted and get out and get my attention out of my head and onto the space around me. So I find that you know, being in the here and now is an extremely valuable thing,
Yeah.
and you know, and not being stuck thinking about things, you know. So that walk kind of lets me clear my head and kind of get ready, you know. Like
I love it.
I'll meet with my staff, get them started, and then I'll go take that walk, you know. And then every week I invest like time into myself, studying, learning, you know. I'm sure I invest probably about 10 to 12 hours a week, usually on the weekend, just digging in and studying that stuff.
Love
And
it.
sometimes not, no, sometimes other days it's, you know, life shifts and stuff. So those are two main things. Because, and then, yeah, and then you know, I coordinate a lot with my staff. I assign them things, you know, I give them responsibilities. I mean, obviously, like tracking things. There's all the business stuff that you do. You know, having your plan for the day, your strategy for the month and for the year. Those are all key elements. And then, yeah, and investing in people around me constantly so that they learn things so that they can. Because if they're learning and they're more responsible and they know how to do more, well, they can help lighten the load for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the key, the super key things that I do, you know. And then besides, obviously, I take time to hang out with my wife every day, and you know,
Yeah.
you know, call my kids. You know, they're grown, but you know, so
Yeah, it's huge.
yeah, stuff like that. You know,
I love that. I
yeah,
It's Ryan Holiday. Are you familiar with him and the Daily Stoic? Do you know who he is?
yeah. Yes,
Okay.
I read a
One of
little.
one of my favorite things that he says is uh he goes, I'm not saying that a walk will fix everything, but what I am saying is there are most things in life that will not be hurt by you taking a walk.
Yeah,
And I'm of the same mind, Barry. I love to walk around the property, go for a walk further out into the woods, like taking that time just to be with yourself and your thoughts, and it's exceptionally powerful. So speaking of thoughts, what is humanity doing here, man? Like, we're on this planet, we're in this universe spinning, uh, ever expanding. I know that we talked in our first chat, and we were talking a little bit about this interview and what we're going to talk about and stuff, and you kind of lit up when I was like, "Hey, what are we up to?" And you're like, "Oh, I'd love to talk about that." So tell me everything, man. What are we doing here as humanity?
humanity. Like, what
Yeah,
are we up to? Like
yeah,
people on this planet.
yeah,
I mean, they're obviously like trying to survive, trying to be happy, trying to figure out how to, you know, I mean, they want a better, something better for themselves and for their family and for mankind, right? I
yeah.
mean, it's really just a matter of whether they're going about it in a sane way or a crazy way. If they're going to, you know, if they're going about it in a sane way, they're actually improving things, right?
Yep.
There's visible, noticeable improvement in the people around them and in the groups and activities they're involved in. And if they're going about it in a crazy way, then the people around them are in bad shape and unhappy, and they're creating chaos, and and you know. So I don't know which part of the culture do we want to attack first.
Is there, do you think that there's like a unifying field between all of that? Like, do you have any sort of spiritual religious thought on that? Or is it just like, yeah, that's what I'm observing, that's what's happening?
I mean, I think people are basically like good. That's part of my
Yeah.
how I feel about people. But some of them you have to dig really deep to find that basic goodness. So it's like some of them that basic goodness is obscured by a bunch of other stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody will. Hopefully somebody will uncover that in that person someday, you know. So I think that's a spiritual belief, you
Yeah.
know, that you know. And I think that I mean I think what you said is really important about love and I mean, the greatest thing you can do is love people despite all reasons why not to.
Yep.
And I think that one of our big purposes, unifying purposes, is to help.
Mm,
Now, whether or not that help has been twisted and corrupted into something where it's, the person is actually now betraying people constantly, they probably think that they're helping.
right.
You know what I mean? Even if they're like, it's like I'm pretty anti-drug, right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm not really into drugs at all. So like, so it's just, so like one example would be like, psychiatric drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably going to get some, I don't
Oh,
know, some hate mail, but
I don't think so.
all right, hopefully not. But like those basically the medications, like there's like, I mean, I've seen parents end up putting their kids on those medications because the parents are desperate,
Right.
because they don't know because the problem is they're desperate,
Right.
and they haven't found a real reason. But those drugs, like, chemically, some of them chemically lobotomize the person after time,
Right.
and it destroys a person. So, and wow, talk about putting something I mean, we've been so marketed to with this the drug culture, by the psychiatric drugs and what have you. It's like, it's crazy. Talk about putting marketing to a truly, what I would consider to be an evil use, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's just the whole scale drugging of people. Um, yeah, I think that what we're really trying to do is help people. We're trying to survive, but some of them are so lost.
Right.
As what's that story about the two wolves that are inside of you?
Yes.
Hopefully people are familiar. I mean, it's like there's I'll tell you two things, right? I love that story because you've got these two wolves that are inside of you, and and it's a matter of which one wins.
Yeah.
There's one that represents good and the true impulse to help, virtues, things like that. They're in the Way to Happiness booklet lists out these, great virtues in the section on treat others as you want to be treated. So hopefully that wolf wins, right?
Yep.
And so there's that, right? And then I think people should go to church too. They say, I don't even care what church, right? It's like, go to church, any church.
Yeah.
The other story that I think is really cool, and people can look this up. There's a lot of different versions of the story. It's about the three blind men and the elephant.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think it's basically what I got from it. And there's different versions of it, and you can get different things from it, right? But they're each going in there and they're kind of like describing it from their perspective, and they're coming up with a wall, right? It's a wall, right? And or it's a tree trunk, right, around the leg, or it's a rope with a tail, right? And the moral of the story is basically that man, it's a thing about religion and God.
Yes.
That particular story is, man is able to describe things from one limited perspective, but he doesn't able to get the whole picture, right? And so that's why I think people should just go to church, any church, because they should start getting a perspective,
Right.
and really just continue that search. I think the spiritual, going to church is really important, and going and learning those, those lessons, super important. So anyway, that's what I think. That's what I think we're doing. I think we're all looking for these things. We just don't necessarily know how to get there.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, Barry. And thank you so much for sharing that. That was fantastic. One of the conversations I was having with a friend who's a PhD. He's a professor and he's a professional therapist. And he and I were discussing there's some good parts of our society that we needed to move away from some toxic religious dogmatic ideas. And we've lost some things that are really important that we kind of need to reclaim as a society. Like church gave people a way to check in on other people. It gave people a meaning and a purpose. Yeah, and there was a sense of like we're striving for the best that we can be, at least with the intent of being here. And yeah, there are atheist churches, like, because everyone needs community, everyone needs some sort of like, hey, how can I be a better human today and this week? Yeah, the elephant one, there was an interesting one that I heard that's of the same idea, but it was talking about what would happen if a iPhone 14 showed up in 800 BC in Greece. What would they, and it was there for an hour. What would that experience be if someone went and found that iPhone 14 in a bush? How would they know how to engage? Like, it would be a thing. And then what if it showed up again in the Philippines in 1200 AD? And then what if that happened again in South Africa in 1948? Like, each one of those experiences, they have no concept for what this device is. Like, this is magic. This is pure, unadulterated magic. And so they'd have their own songs, they'd have their own stories, they'd have their own, what does it do? It lights up, it interacts with you. It's got this portal to another space. Like, there would be things that they all said, they're all describing the exact same object. But they have their own history, culture, ideas, and identities around that object. And so I love that. I love that, man. Well, Barry, thank you so much for coming on, man. This is super fun. I wish we didn't have to cut the conversation short. If people want to check you out, reach out to you, you want to promote anything, go for it, man.
If they want to, if they want to check out, they can go to freetime.solutions and freetime.solutions, and we actually have an ebook on there called 249 Things That a Virtual Assistant Can Do For You. And so that's our virtual assistant company. I actually have 2 virtual assistant companies. But Free Time Solutions is I go there, download that ebook. We'll reach out and we'll chat with you. I'd love to have a chat, see how we can help you with some of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, be great, man.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, check out the website, and it'll be in the show notes. Until next time, have a great day.